So what I got here is probably one of the most common machines out there on the market. It's what you're going to find in the big box stores. They have different names, you know, Yardman, you know, whatever, Craftsman, MTD. They got all these names. It's all the same. If you're looking to do a tune-up, well, you might want to check out this video because it's simple and it is a tune-up video, kinda. And just a quick thing I'll get into before we get started on the video, and I'm going to give you the background throughout, is a person came up to me from the neighborhood and she said, it was her and her son, and she said, can you get it running? It's only like a year old. And when I say tune-up, when I asked her about, you know, the usual, what did you do, what's going wrong with it, what are you finding, what have you done to it, and we'll get into that in a minute, but I think it's important to understand is from the perspective of the person fooling around with it, she didn't think of it as a tune-up, and after I gave it back to her, she's picking it up and running through, was very happy, and she didn't think of it as a tune-up. So one of the things I want to talk about is the terminology and what it means when people say certain things like fill her up or fill it with oil, or I think it's kind of important is that we're all on sort of the same page with language. So let's get started with this video. All right, we'll talk more about this later, but I did this right in front of the customer. Okay, so she's been up here for, I don't know, half hour and been settling. So you can't really see it, but right now I can see it. It's about up to here. Let's dip it in again. Just like that, right? Let it drop down on the detents. Yeah, it's up here. So I can't really tell if I'm in focus or not, too much glare. But the line, the full line is down here. So we'll talk about this more later, but there's way too much oil in it. So before we test it, we gotta get some of it out. But the oil is clean, and she said she filled it up. Well, sometimes you gotta take people at their word. What did you do? She was like, put oil in it. And right away I said, did you fill it up with oil? She said, yeah, I put oil in it. And she didn't really know how much. And some of these things over the years, like on the box, it'll say, don't change the oil, you don't need to, or don't change oil, just add oil. You'll see that from time to time. Manuals come with these things, and I would strongly recommend you buy one of these, read the manual, or go online and download the PDF. Just be careful with PDFs. Make sure you're getting it from the official site, because PDFs lie and you could infect your computer. Or you can try it on your phone, they're a little bit less infectable, but that's another story. People say, put oil in it, fill it with oil. Well, you need to learn how to check the dipstick, and I go over that briefly, and you'll see it when you pull your dipstick. Remember now, everyone, that these videos, the expertise level of the people watching vary considerably. So on videos like this, it's geared more to the novice, and I want to show you some of the real novice, some people say new, but they're not, they're novice mistakes. So those of you a bit more advanced, a little bit more advanced, you know, some of this is easy to you. You already know this, but at some point in your life, right, you didn't know this stuff. So some of my other videos would be more, which you don't see just out of the shot right now, but you got a glimpse of it. I'm working on a Scott's tractor, and it's very involved, and there's a lot going on. That's more for the advanced viewer. But this is simple. So when you say fill it with oil, maybe a friend said, you got to put oil, fill it with oil. No, you don't fill it with oil. And she didn't know that you could drain the oil out of it. I'm gonna get another container, but it's not bad. I don't see any water in here. She could have a spark issue or a spark plug issue. This looks like it's okay. All right, she needs a new one, but it's not bad. Let me get another container, and I'll report back in a minute. I'll pull the plug as well. I suck the fuel out of every machine, because usually in the beginning of the season, the biggest offense, the biggest problem that occurs is water gets into the gasoline. It gets in from the atmosphere. Look how beautiful that is. And this one on my right's got muck in the bottom. It's cloudy, it's fuzzy. I'm not shaking it because I'll separate it out and then I'll suck them out with that sucker. And that fuel can still be used. I'll burn it in my machines. Sometimes it gets really dark and sometimes it's just full of water. Well, that's not the case here because I asked her, where do you keep the machine and where do you keep the filler can? The top must be closed. It should be kept out of the rain. Some people shove this stuff underneath their deck and it's out for, 5 months of the year or 6 months. I want to caution you on that because it doesn't take long for the alcohol and the gas to consume the water in the air. It pulls it in through the vent, usually the vent on the filler can, and certainly the vent that's on the gas tank on the mower itself. So look out for that. And then there's junk and filth and dirt that gets in and it can clog the carburetor. All right, somebody put a brand new Champion R12YC in. Doesn't look like it's ever been used. So the question is it sparking? But we don't know. I'm not smelling anything. It may not be sparking. So let's dump some of the oil out of this next and check our blade. Don't see any real issues here. A little ding. Nothing much. We got that there. We can get that out. We'll give this a clean if we get it running again, which it should run. This looks like it'll run. We'll pull the blade off in a minute. I'm just dumping some of the oil and we'll put some of the fuel back in. But the plug is, like I said, is new. I checked the gap. It was about 32. I brought it down to about 28, 30 and a little nose seize on it. We'll put that back in a minute. I want to pull it over and see how it feels. Now the brake is on, but so that's working good. Could have a bad coil. Stand by. All right, with the plug out, I'm just going to pull it over and pull the handle back. All right, now it feels okay. Now I could put a spark tester on it. I think what we'll do is we'll just put the plug back in. Doesn't look like that plug ever saw any fuel or any fire. We'll put a little bit of gas back in it, and then actually what we'll do is we'll just put the plug back in. Let's just shoot some starting fluid into down here, all right? But that's a new plug, and now you saw there's a gasket on it. And the mistake all novices make is when they go to tighten it, this is where I use a 3/8. They go to tighten it, it feels like it's stripping. You have to compress that gasket, and I already started doing it. Still going. Feels like it's stripping, but it's not. That's it. And I'm using a stubby handle or shorter handle. It's not really my stubby. And it's a little uncomfortable to use one of these, but if you're not using a torque wrench, this is going to limit your ability to really tighten it. You're not going to overcrush the gasket with this. You're not going to strip the head out. Also because you cross-threaded it, you can do it cranking it in. All right, let's give this a test. I'm going to check the oil again until I feel comfortable with the oil level. It could be a little low, but not over full. Put a little bit of filtered gas back in and make sure it's clean. Pop this back in, we'll bring it down on the ground. We'll shoot it with some hot shot. If your machine is running, if your engine is running, regardless of the mower or the type of machine, and it's running, but it's not running right, it's really a tune-up, but it could still be a repair because it could be something broken and it will run, but it won't run properly. In order to effect a proper repair, it needs to be replaced or repaired or whatever you have to do to it. But we're just going to clean this machine up, and you can see right away it's got a beautiful plug in it. They should be gapped. There are gapping tools. This is a simple one. I want to be quick about this because it's not an in-depth tutorial, because that takes more than a half hour. It could take an hour to really get in depth. Typically, gaps, plugs that come from the factory, you want to check it. It could have dropped on the floor. You could have dropped it on the floor. It has to have a gap. About anywhere between 28 or 25 and 32 thousandths. Typically for a lawnmower like this, it's about 28 thousandths. That's 0.028 of an inch. And all of these have a way of adjusting the plug and choosing the correct little wire and sliding it underneath. Putting a little bit of nose seize or oil on the plug is helpful when you put it in. Make sure everything goes good. And then you have to make sure that you tighten down the spark plug. Now, all of these plugs, these kinds of plugs, this one has a washer right here. That washer, when the plug is new, it needs to be crushed. And I mentioned it to her, you have to tighten it to the point where it feels like it's stripping, but it's not. You gotta go slow, go easy. I'm putting fuel in through the funnel with a paint filter strainer on it. And I recommend doing this anyway, because if you don't put garbage into your lawnmower, then you don't have to get it out. And a lot of times I'll fill it from a mason jar, because a lot of these take about a mason jar, maybe a mason jar is a half. So I'll dump into a mason jar and then I'll pour into the machine through this, funnel, paper filtered. But I'm going to use, my standard scenario is about 10 ounces of fuel for testing purposes. It's enough to make sure that there's enough fuel on the bottom to get through the filter, get into the hose, fill the carburetor. But if there's a problem, it's not so much that it's going to be leaking and spilling out and becoming a danger and a waste of expensive gasoline. Now, I just emptied more oil out. So let's check that. Now, at some point, we're going to want to pull this top off, because I suspect it could be an automatic choke is not working properly. Ain't supposed to be a bad coil, but we want to get in there anyway and make sure it's okay. You're not going to be able to see it, but it's somewhere around here. That should be enough. You can't see because there's not enough light, but I can see that that choke blade is closed and it's moving freely. So let's spray some hot shot in there. Let me set you back up on the stand. But yeah, it's definitely on. Spray a little bit in there. Kind of open it up a little bit. The choke is closed. Let's see if it kicks. I'd say it's running really good. Let's bring it up on the table, dump the rest of the oil, pull the blade off. We'll take the top off. I'll freshen up the blade. We'll scrape the bottom. We'll rinse everything off a little bit, kind of get it cleaned in there underneath the top, just to make sure everything is good to go. Final inspection. Put the blade, nice sharp blade back, and put some real oil in it. Well, that's how much oil. You standing in your light? Excess oil there was in it, so it was probably hydrolocking. You keep pulling it and that oil is going to get caught up into spaces and it just won't turn over. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. I can see it, you may not see it, but you see the rainbow effect? So the oil that kind of settled, that I took off, the excess, that's more of the black, but what's coming out now is more of the sparkly gray aluminum particles. And they tell you don't change the oil. Yeah, I wonder why. Because you're going to ruin your engine. That's a whole nother thing. Let me get out of here. Let's keep going. Now, as you see in these shots here, the oil was muck and it was bad. And a lot of manufacturers seem to think, especially Briggs, seem to think that you don't have to change the oil, that we've got the motor really clean from the manufacturing phases. And years ago when we made motors, there was crap in there and stuff fell off from the inside from the casting process. That's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo. What they're telling you is don't change your oil. Just put oil in it, but not fill it. I do not recommend that. You see all the junk that came out, or we're talking about where this exactly is in the video. You see all the junk that came out. So it was very overfull, and that caused back pressure issues with inside the motor. And it didn't want to start. And even if it did start, it just wouldn't want to run. Well, it's not bad. Definitely needs it. It needed a good tune-up for sure. There's a Nick. Hey, Nick. All right, let me hit this edge. This one's worse, so I'm going to hit the top first. Flatten it a little bit, then sharpen it, and then do it again. I'm gonna put a little no-sees on that bolt, because it didn't have any on it. So you can see it's real sharp. But I still flatten it a little. I'll check its balance in a minute, but it looks fine, okay? So let me scrape the deck a little bit, just a little bit. Let me show you how much oil was here. Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot of oil. Yeah, I can see a bit of the stripies. Let me see. Yeah, you're not going to really see it, but yeah, it's in there. There's some schmutz in there. All right, that's why we do this. And just a general inspection. Now I clean it. I make sure everything is good. We'll go over some of that as well. But in the end, right, what you're just looking to do is just go, it's like policing the area. You're going over a handful of things just to make sure that everything is good to go, including the blade sharpening. There are blade sharpeners that you could buy or put on a drill and to sort of dress the edge of the blade. You see a little bit of me, taking care of the blade. Those are separate videos. Let's get back to it. That's better. And then when I rinse it, it'll be even better than that. All right, let's get it on all fours. We'll pull the top. As you can see, with only 10 ounces of fuel, it's less likely to spill all over as I'm tossing it. But just the 3 bolts here, don't lose them, they're special. They're shanked. I can see that the handle wasn't assembled right and it's loose. Maybe because they transport it. Looks really, really good in here. Just take a quick look. We'll rinse it out anyway, but it looks perfect. Let me show you. It's a new machine, so see, there's that spring. So if you ever go to wash or pressure wash, take that off. Or be very mindful of it. We're just going to give this a quick rinse underneath and around. I'm trying not to get water in here. This is your stove, right? It's your heat stove. When we're done, we'll put a little bit of oil there. A lot of times that gets jammed up, but like I said, this is a new machine. All right, let's get to it. Let's get it down. I'll go get the old air cleaner and I'll get the cap and this cap. We'll put that back on the carburetor. This way we don't get any water infiltration in there. The exhaust I'm not worried about, but we don't want anything going in the carburetor right now. All right, I'm just gonna bring it out into the sun, tilt it, let it drip dry for a little bit. Out in the sun for a little while doesn't take much to dry, but we're going to put a drop of oil there. Now this one doesn't really need it because it's so new, but as they get older, right, that gets jammed up for sure. We're going to do the wheels in a minute. All this looks good in here. If it were a little older, I would lubricate the cable. I would do stuff like that, but we're not going to right now. Everything looks good. Let's put it back together. Again, if it were a little older, we want to make sure that in here is always cleaned out good. And then you can put a drop of oil here and on the poles. Now, when it's older, it's more important, very little oil. And then you can put some, there's like a spring pocket right there. And again, a touch of oil, but what's even better is chain lube. And I show that a lot on my channel. We're outside, so I don't have it handy, but liquid wrench makes a chain lube. Then pull it through. Make sure she's working good. Because this gets all jammed up, and like I said, over time, and that spring, especially when it gets wet, we don't want it to rust or anything. You can put a drop of oil or some nose season on these threads, especially again as it gets older. They'll get jammed, they'll get rusted and jammed in there. But these, these are pretty good. This is one of the things that they got right. And make sure it's engaging properly before you cinch it down. And I don't make them too tight, right? That's why I'm using one of these. We're gonna put some oil, especially in these wheels. I've seen it where they get rusted, you can't get them off. And you gotta replace that whole piece, or the bar and the wheels to the back. I'll show you the chain lube in a minute, but the chain lube is even better because, not the chain wax, but the chain lube, because it's a gel. It'll gel up. It goes in like a penetrant. All right, good 1030 oil. I have it set up to get yourself one of these, and I marked it. About 16 ounces, but we're gonna go slow. We're gonna put a little bit less than that in there. Make sure your dipstick and all that is clean. And then we're gonna check it. Now this table's not completely level. These don't take a lot, so we're gonna give it a chance to drain down and clear the dipstick tube so we get an accurate reading. Meantime, so this is the liquid wrench chain and cable lube, anti-sling, but it's a penetrant as well, so it'll get in good. Made in the USA. Sometimes it's hard to get this stuff. During like the lockdowns and everything, it took me 6 months to get a can. This one's almost empty. As opposed to, this is another product like chain wax. Now this is really waxes up. It's a paraffin formula, so it's really good when you want to lock something down and you want to make it more waterproof. And then lastly, a typical thing I use is the white lithium grease. Great for axles and things like that. But I showed you I used oil. That's just a heavyweight oil, a diesel oil, which is also very useful for everything else. I'm gonna check that in a minute. We got a brand new air filter to top things off. All right, let's put that on. Pull the top snap here, and then that kind of, that kind of slides into the bottom. It's all clean here. Now hers was not bad. I blew it out, but I figured we'll just put a fresh one in. That one got a little bit of oil damage. Nothing major. This would be good for another like sales machine, like a more budget machine. Be fine. All right, we're right up to here. So I added another 4 ounces. That's a total of 20. And like I said, it's not quite even. Let's put a little more fuel in it and get it down and run it. All right, just check the oil again a couple more times. It's real close, may even be a little over full. And the reason often is that you can never really get all of the oil out. So if you run your engine for a little bit, not too long, and then make sure that the carburetor is kind of cool, and then dump the oil. Just be careful because you don't want to be too hot. It'll be a little easier to get all the oil, more of the oil out, but you'll never get all of it out. It just gets stuck in places. So that's why I say go slow and adjust. Handles pulled back and tied back. We should just be able to pull it. I put a little bit more fuel in it. Just gonna let it run for a little while. There you go, one full. All right, let it run for a bit.
Moments later.
Yeah, she's running real good. No smoke, no nothing. Let's do a hot start. All right, we'll cover over some of these aspects on the outro. See you guys in a minute. Now, people will say to me, Arch, my machine doesn't work. How much for a tune-up? Okay, if it's not running, it's a repair. It's not a tune-up. And I'll ask them, what is it doing? Well, it doesn't work. That's not really enough. They'll say, well, it doesn't turn over. And what turn over means the engine is spinning. Now, I say, do you pull it with the pull starter or the electric start? Yeah, I pull it, it goes, but it doesn't start. Well, it does turn over because you're pulling it and it's spinning, it's turning over. And I'll say, does it kick? Does it try to fire? What do you mean? Well, do you hear any sound? Does it sound like the motor is trying to start? You're able to turn it over, so that term sometimes is not used properly. Does it kick? No, I don't hear anything. And one of the things you can do is you can spray a little bit of Hot Shot starting fluid in it. Let me get that. If you try some Hot Shot starting fluid and you pull the air cleaner cover off, shoot that in like I did, and if it kicks and maybe even runs for a little bit, then you know you have ignition, you know you have spark, you know it's turning over, it's not seized. But if it stalls and doesn't want to run, it's most likely at that point not getting fuel. And that could be water in your tank or dirt or junk in the carburetor. That's a different story right here. So this is more of a tune-up, but just a little bit more about the terminology, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody with a lot of technical mumbo-jumbo. This is pretty straightforward. She had way too much oil in, as you can see, and as I mentioned earlier, and just to get you out of here on this, is it screwed up the way the inside of the engine works, the way a motor works. It has to make a certain amount of compression, and that pressure build up inside behind the plug, inside the combustion chamber. You get your spark, you get your air and your fuel, right? And it should light off. And if you have the compression, it will light off. It will turn over, it will light off. It may not run, but you'll hear it fart and kick and kind of do its thing, especially if you spray that stuff in. Like I said, it'll be more of a fuel issue if it doesn't continue to run. If it does that, you're almost there, but that is another separate issue. All of that extra oil is disrupting its ability to both do two things: make the proper amount of compression at the right time, also suck. It has to suck the fuel in through the carburetor, so that's the opposite of compression. One side is pressure, one side is more of a suction. It disrupts that. And then of course, if you've really got a lot of oil in there, you'll hydrolock it. So in other words, it's not made to pump liquid on the inside. With all that extra liquid or oil, it will not compress. It has nowhere to go. It might puke out all over the place. You think your whole motor's blown up. And it's very bad. If it does run and you manage to get it to run, it will probably smoke like the dickens and puke oil all over the place, if you can get it to run. What happened here is it's a small engine. It just didn't want to run. It was way too much oil. It couldn't blow, and it couldn't suck properly. Again, without getting too technical. Very simple stuff to do. If you do this kind of maintenance, scrape your deck, rinse it off, sharpen your blade, keep the air filter clean, keep the general condition of the engine clean because it's air cooled. That oil splashing around not only lubricates, but it splashes up against the inside of the motor. You see these fins on the outside. And if you've got a lot of dirt on the engine, it'll have a problem. It will overheat. It'll run too hot. You could blow out a head gasket. You could damage a valve. Certainly, you're damaging the oil because the oil overheats. Since the oil is both lubricant and coolant with the air, you damage the oil, and then the oil, the lack of good oil inside the engine, along with all the crap, it's wearing, and it will wear out really, really quick. And then you're going to need a new lawnmower. Hopefully yours isn't in that condition. Check out the rest of my videos. Thanks for watching this episode of Archer's Garage.